They tried to erase her name, bury her record, but when the commander-in-chief stood for her, history froze. The Pentagon conference room had never been more silent. 37 defense officials sat motionless as the president stood at the head of the table, holding a classified file they'd hoped would never see daylight. "Gentlemen," the president said, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Explain to me why you tried to destroy the service record of Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, the most effective sniper in United States military history." 47 confirmed kills. 23 high-value targets eliminated. Perfect mission success rate. The file also contains something else, documentation of their systematic campaign to erase her from history. Before we dive into this incredible story of courage, corruption, and presidential intervention, tell us in the comments which country you're watching from today. And if you believe that excellence should be recognized regardless of politics or prejudice, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos had enlisted in the Army at 19 with a singular dream: to serve her country with the same dedication her grandfather had shown in Vietnam. At 5 feet 6 inches with dark hair typically braided in military regulation style and steady brown eyes that seemed to measure distances instinctively, she possessed natural shooting abilities that her instructors had never encountered. Her journey to becoming America's deadliest female sniper began at Fort Benning, where her marksmanship scores shattered facility records. During basic rifle qualification, she achieved perfect scores at distances where most recruits struggled to hit targets. Her shooting instructors recommended her for advanced marksmanship programs typically reserved for soldiers with years of experience. Santos, Sergeant Major Williams had told her after witnessing her performance, "I've been training shooters for 23 years. I've never seen natural ability like yours. You belong in sniper school." The sniper school selection process was brutal. Physical conditioning, advanced marksmanship, camouflage and concealment, stalking techniques, and psychological evaluation designed to identify soldiers capable of operating alone under extreme stress for extended periods. Of the 47 candidates who began the course, only 12 graduated. Maria Santos finished first in her class. Her first deployment was to Afghanistan with the 75th Ranger Regiment, where she was assigned as precision marksman for high-value target operations. The combat environment was unforgiving: mountainous terrain, extended observation periods, and enemies who had spent years perfecting guerrilla warfare tactics. During her first 6 months in country, Staff Sergeant Santos achieved 17 confirmed kills, including 3 high-value targets that intelligence agencies had been tracking for months. Her longest confirmed kill was at 1,247 meters in conditions where most snipers wouldn't attempt engagement beyond 800 meters. Santos is not just effective. Her team leader, Captain Rodriguez, wrote in her evaluation, "She's revolutionizing how we conduct precision operations. Her situational awareness and shooting capabilities exceed those of snipers with twice her experience." But excellence in combat was only part of Staff Sergeant Santos's impact. She also demonstrated leadership abilities that impressed her superiors and earned the respect of male soldiers who initially questioned a female sniper's capabilities. During a particularly dangerous operation near Kandahar, her team was pinned down by enemy fire from multiple positions. Traditional tactics would have required calling for artillery or air support, but Santos identified 3 sniper positions that were preventing extraction of wounded team members. In 12 minutes, she eliminated all 3 enemy snipers with precision shots that allowed her team to evacuate casualties and complete their mission. Her actions saved the lives of 4 Rangers and prevented the mission from becoming a tactical disaster. "I've served with Special Operations snipers for 15 years, Master Sergeant Thompson commented after the operation. "Santos's performance under pressure exceeds anything I've witnessed. Gender is completely irrelevant when you're that effective at saving lives." Staff Sergeant Santos completed 3 combat deployments with performance records that established her as one of the military's most effective precision marksmen. Her total confirmed kills reached 47, her high-value target eliminations totaled 23, and her mission success rate was 100%. No operation she participated in failed to achieve its objectives. But her success was creating problems for officials who believed that female combat achievements should remain limited and largely unrecognized. A group of senior Pentagon bureaucrats and military leaders had begun developing concerns about the precedent her recognition might establish. Colonel Marcus Webb, Assistant Director of Personnel Operations, was the primary architect of the campaign against Staff Sergeant Santos. Webb believed that highlighting female combat achievements undermined traditional military culture and could lead to unrealistic expectations about women's roles in special operations. Santos's record is impressive, Webb commented to his associates. But we need to consider the broader implications of promoting female snipers as equal to their male counterparts. It could create pressure for lowered standards and compromised unit effectiveness. Webb's concerns were shared by Brigadier General Richard Hayes, who commanded significant influence over personnel policies and promotion decisions. Hayes believed that women in combat roles were a political experiment that threatened military readiness. The Santos situation requires careful management, Hayes told Webb during a classified meeting. Her combat record is undeniable, but we can't allow individual cases to drive policy changes that could compromise our operational effectiveness. Their solution was systematic. They would gradually reduce Staff Sergeant Santos's recognition, transfer her to non-combat assignments, and ensure that her achievements were minimized in official records. They believed that bureaucratic processes could quietly neutralize the impact of her combat success. The campaign began subtly. Staff Sergeant Santos's combat awards were delayed in processing. Her recommendations for advanced training were denied without explanation. Opportunities for promotion were mysteriously unavailable despite her exceptional performance evaluations. Santos, her commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel Martinez, explained apologetically, "Your combat record is outstanding, but personnel decisions are made at levels above my authority. I've recommended you for every advancement possible, but those decisions are being made elsewhere." Staff Sergeant Santos understood that her career was being deliberately limited, but she continued to perform her duties with the same professionalism that had characterized her service. She trained junior soldiers, maintained her marksmanship skills, and accepted assignments that underutilized her capabilities without complaint. But Colonel Webb and his associates weren't satisfied with limiting her future opportunities. They wanted to systematically discredit her past achievements, ensuring that her combat record couldn't be used to advocate for expanded female combat roles. Their plan required creating grounds for disciplinary action that would justify reviewing and potentially revising her service record. They needed charges that appeared legitimate but were designed to provide justification for reducing her recognition and combat achievements. The fabricated charges involved alleged violations of weapons protocols during a training exercise. The accusations suggested that Staff Sergeant Santos had failed to follow proper procedures while conducting marksmanship instruction, creating safety risks for other personnel. The charges were carefully constructed to appear reasonable while being impossible to definitively disprove. They involved technical interpretations of procedures and witness statements from personnel who could be influenced by career implications. The charges against Santos are serious, Colonel Webb announced during the Article 32 hearing. Safety violations during weapons training demonstrate questionable judgment that calls into question her previous performance evaluations and combat awards. Staff Sergeant Santos understood that the charges were fabricated, but she also recognized the power of the officials prosecuting her case. Fighting the accusations would require resources and political support that she didn't possess as an enlisted soldier. Her military defense attorney was competent but overwhelmed by the political complexity of her case. The charges might have been fabricated, but the officials supporting them controlled promotion decisions, assignment opportunities, and career advancement for military lawyers who might defend her too aggressively. Staff Sergeant Santos, her attorney explained honestly, "Your combat record is exceptional, but the officials pursuing these charges have significant institutional power. Fighting them could result in expanded accusations and more serious career damage." The military justice system was proceeding exactly as Colonel Webb had planned. Staff Sergeant Santos would be convicted of technical violations, her service record would be reviewed and adjusted, and her combat achievements would be systematically minimized to prevent future problems. What Webb hadn't anticipated was that Staff Sergeant Santos's case had attracted attention at levels far above his bureaucratic authority. The President of the United States received intelligence briefings that included summaries of significant military personnel actions. These briefings were designed to keep the Commander-in-Chief informed about important developments that might affect military readiness or national security. The case against Staff Sergeant Santos appeared in one of these briefings, not because of the charges themselves, but because intelligence analysts had identified patterns suggesting that her prosecution was part of a broader campaign against successful female combat veterans. Mr. President, the National Security Advisor explained during a classified briefing, we've identified evidence suggesting systematic efforts to limit recognition of female combat achievements. The Santos case appears to be part of a coordinated campaign. The President reviewed Staff Sergeant Santos's classified service record, including operational details that had been excluded from her official personnel file. Her combat achievements were extraordinary by any standard, and the charges against her appeared to be transparently fabricated. Who is responsible for these charges? The President asked his National Security Advisor. Sir, the primary architects appear to be Colonel Webb and Brigadier General Hayes, along with several other senior officials who believe female combat recognition should be limited for cultural reasons. The President's response was immediate and decisive. Schedule a meeting with all officials involved in this case. I want them in the Roosevelt Room tomorrow morning at 0800. And bring Staff Sergeant Santos's complete service record, including all classified operational details. The meeting was arranged as a routine personnel review, giving the officials no indication that the President had personally intervened in Staff Sergeant Santos's case. Colonel Webb, Brigadier General Hayes, and their associates arrived believing they were attending a standard briefing about military personnel policies. The President entered the Roosevelt Room carrying Staff Sergeant Santos's file and immediately established the tone for what would become the most uncomfortable meeting of these officials' careers. Gentlemen, the President began, I want you to explain why you attempted to destroy the service record of the most effective sniper in United States military history. The silence that followed was profound. None of the officials had expected presidential involvement in what they considered routine personnel management. They certainly hadn't anticipated that the Commander-in-Chief would personally review Staff Sergeant Santos's classified service record. Colonel Webb attempted to provide justification for their actions. Mr. President, the charges against Staff Sergeant Santos involve legitimate safety concerns that require. Colonel Webb, the President interrupted. I've reviewed the complete case file. The charges are fabricated. What I want to know is why you fabricated them. Brigadier General Hayes tried to redirect the conversation toward policy concerns. Sir, our actions were designed to maintain institutional standards and prevent. General Hayes, the President said, his voice carrying unmistakable authority. Staff Sergeant Santos has 47 confirmed kills and a 100% mission success rate. Your institutional standards should be celebrating those achievements, not trying to erase them. The President opened Staff Sergeant Santos's service file and began reading specific operational details that demonstrated the extraordinary nature of her combat performance. Each example was more impressive than the last, building a case for recognition rather than prosecution. Operation Desert Eagle, February 2019, the President read. Staff Sergeant Santos eliminated 3 high-value targets at ranges exceeding 1,000 meters, enabling the successful extraction of a captured Navy SEAL team. Her precision shooting saved the lives of 6 American servicemen. The officials sat in stunned silence as the President continued reading operational summaries that they had hoped would remain classified and forgotten. Operation Mountain Thunder, June 2019. Staff Sergeant Santos provided overwatch for a Ranger patrol that came under attack from a numerically superior enemy force. Her precision fire eliminated 17 enemy combatants, allowing the patrol to withdraw with no American casualties. Colonel Webb realized that their campaign against Staff Sergeant Santos had reached the attention of the most powerful person in the American government, and their carefully constructed justifications were being systematically demolished by the Commander-in-Chief himself. Operation Iron Shield, September 2019, the President continued. Staff Sergeant Santos conducted solo reconnaissance of enemy positions for 72 hours, providing intelligence that enabled a successful special operations raid. Her information was so accurate that the mission achieved complete surprise and eliminated 12 high-value targets with no friendly casualties. The president closed the file and looked directly at each official in the room. These operations saved American lives, eliminated terrorist threats, and advanced our national security objectives. And you tried to prosecute the soldier responsible for these successes. Brigadier General Hayes attempted one final justification. Mr. President, our concerns involve the broader implications of General. The president interrupted. Your concerns involve prejudice against female combat effectiveness. Staff Sergeant Santos's record proves that excellence has no gender, and your attempts to hide that excellence are unacceptable. The president's decision was immediate and non-negotiable. All charges against Staff Sergeant Santos are dismissed. Her service record will be amended to include full recognition of her combat achievements. And I want recommendations for her advancement to positions that utilize her exceptional capabilities. But the president wasn't finished addressing the systematic campaign against Staff Sergeant Santos and other female combat veterans. Furthermore, the president continued, I want a complete review of personnel actions involving female combat veterans over the past 3 years. If this pattern extends beyond Staff Sergeant Santos, there will be additional consequences. The officials who had spent months planning Staff Sergeant Santos's downfall now faced the possibility that their careers might be ended by the same evidence they had tried to suppress. Colonel Webb's response was barely audible. Mr. President, we understand your position and will implement all directed actions immediately. Colonel Webb, the president replied, you'll implement these actions because they're right, not because I directed them. Staff Sergeant Santos earned recognition through combat performance that exceeds your own career achievements. The meeting concluded with presidential directives that reversed every aspect of the campaign against Staff Sergeant Santos. Her charges were dismissed, her service record was corrected to reflect her full combat achievements, and she was recommended for advancement to positions that matched her exceptional capabilities. 3 weeks later, Staff Sergeant Santos was promoted to Sergeant First Class and assigned to the Army's premier sniper training facility, where she would train the next generation of precision marksmen. Her curriculum would include operational techniques developed through 47 combat engagements and refined by experiences that few soldiers ever encounter. The officials who had tried to destroy her career faced professional consequences that reflected the seriousness of their actions. Colonel Webb was reassigned to administrative duties that removed him from personnel decisions. Brigadier General Hayes faced investigation for systematic discrimination that extended beyond Staff Sergeant Santos's case. The lesson here, the president told his staff, is that excellence should be recognized and celebrated, regardless of whether it challenges conventional expectations. Staff Sergeant Santos's achievements make America stronger, and anyone trying to hide those achievements is working against our national interests. Staff Sergeant Santos's story became an inspiration for female service members throughout the military, demonstrating that exceptional performance could overcome institutional prejudice when supported by principled leadership. Her training programs at the sniper school emphasized that precision marksmanship required mental discipline, physical conditioning, and tactical knowledge that had nothing to do with gender. Her students included male and female soldiers who learned from someone whose combat experience exceeded most military instructors. Sergeant Santos, one of her students, commented during advanced training, "Your instruction has shown us that effective shooting depends on technique and dedication, not assumptions about capability." Her influence extended beyond individual training to policy development that expanded opportunities for female soldiers in combat roles. Her documented success provided evidence that capability-based assignments produced better results than gender-based limitations. Years later, Sergeant First Class Santos continued serving as one of the military's most respected precision marksmanship instructors. Her combat record remained unmatched, her training programs were adopted throughout special operations, and her example inspired a generation of female soldiers to pursue excellence in traditionally male-dominated fields. The story of how the president defended America's most effective female sniper became legendary throughout the military, reminding service members that true leadership requires supporting exceptional performance even when it challenges established expectations. Her case demonstrated that systematic discrimination could be overcome when principled leaders were willing to examine evidence objectively and make decisions based on documented performance rather than cultural prejudice. The moment when the president stood in the Roosevelt Room and defended Staff Sergeant Santos's achievements had lasting impact throughout the military, establishing precedents that protected female combat veterans from similar persecution and ensured that excellence would be recognized regardless of gender. This story was brought to you by Silent Salute. Before we leave you today, here's our question. Have you ever witnessed someone in authority stand up for what's right, even when it challenged powerful people who opposed them? Have you seen leaders defend excellence when others tried to diminish it for political or cultural reasons? Tell us in the comments about moments when you witnessed principled leadership that protected exceptional performance from those who wanted to suppress it. And if you believe that true leadership means defending excellence regardless of politics or prejudice, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. Every story reminds us that exceptional performance deserves recognition and protection, and that the most important battles are sometimes fought not on distant battlefields, but in conference rooms where the powerful decide whether excellence will be celebrated or suppressed. We'll see you in the next story where we'll discover another incredible tale of courage, principle, and the leaders who stand for what's right.